Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Play Attention webinar. My name is Gwen Sorley, and I'll be your host today. I really do appreciate all of you taking some time out of your day to learn a little bit more about how play attention can improve executive function. Just a little bit about my background. My background is in education. I have a master's in education, and I started using play attention with my clients back in 1996. So I've been using play attention with every age from 5 years old all the way up through adulthood um, for about 30 years now. So hopefully my experiences using play attention with lots of different individuals will give you a good understanding of the program and the process. Tina, we're excited that you are here too from Colorado. Thanks for joining us. All right. So, as I look through this list, I do see that there are many of you here today that have been in some of our past webinars. And you know that in our webinars, we typically talk about areas of executive function. So, we've had webinars on organization and time management. We've talked about rejection sensitive dysphoria. We've discussed anxiety and stress. We talk about all of these concerns you may have, whether you're looking at play attention or ADHD as a whole. And you may be considering play attention for yourself or your child or your clients. But we touch on a lot of really important topics. And in those other webinars, we always give tips and strategies, something that you can take home, right? We talked about decision making a couple of months ago. And we had lots of tips and strategies on how to make the decision making process a little bit easier. Because decision making is one of those areas that can be really challenging for all of us, but especially if you have ADHD. So when we get to those tips and strategies, we always want you to have those in your toolbox. It's important. But at some point, we have to get to the root cause. We have to simultaneously develop skills so that those tips and strategies work for you. I'll give you an example. I was speaking with an adult and she has ADHD, and she said, everyone keeps looking at me and saying, just write a to do list. And I tell them, I can write a to do list. That's not the problem. I start every morning with a beautiful to do list. The problem is at the end of the day, I haven't gotten anything done on the to do list. So the to do list, the strategy isn't the issue. Can any of you relate to that at all? You can say yes in the chat box or use the raise your hand icon if you can relate. Okay, a lot of you are raising your hand or typing in yes. And that's so common. And you might think, but why? Why do these strategies not work for me or for my clients or my child? And if you think about all of the skills that are required in order to make that to do list work for you, there are a lot of skills. First, for that individual that I was talking with, we need to work on improving her attention stamina so that when she starts number one on the list, she's able to sustain her attention until she completes it. We also have to work on impulse control so she doesn't start number one and impulsively jump down to number three. We have to work on uh, filtering distractions so that when she's engaged in one of those tasks, she's not suddenly distracted by the laundry in the corner of the room or a TV show that's on in the other room. So we have to work on filtering distractions. We also will work on mindfulness so that she's able to stay present and calm that internal dialogue that may derail her. And also, another critical component is working memory so that when she's reading, let's say number four on the to do list, she's able to remember all the steps that she needs to walk through in order to complete number four. So when you think about that to do list, have you ever really broken it down? The skills that are required to make that to do list effective. You have to be able to sustain your attention, control your impulsivity, filter distractions, stay present, and also have strong working memory. That's a lot of skills that come together just for that one task or to do list, I should say, or strategy. So it is really important that we remember The strategies are important, but we have to work on skills. I'll give you another example that may resonate with some of you, and that's in the school setting. So many of you here today may have a child who has a 504. Any of you have a child with a 504? You can raise your hand. Okay. So many of you are saying that you do. Now, remember, if you're not as familiar with a 504, that is a list of accommodations that the school makes for your child if they are considered what is OHI, other health impaired, and that often ADHD often falls in that category. So a lot of times, and this was my experience when I was in the classroom years ago, one of the accommodations we would always make was the accommodation to give longer test time. And in theory, that is a good accommodation. And again, we want accommodations in place because they do have the potential to really help your child. However, we have to simultaneously develop skills because unless I'm also simultaneously helping that child be able to sustain attention to the test, control impulsivity, filter distractions, process the information so that they can get that information from their head down on paper. If I'm not simultaneously developing all of those skills, then longer test time often becomes longer time to daydream. So that's what we want to talk about today. How do we develop those skills so that at the end of the day, you don't have to work so hard, that all of those tips and strategies that are in your toolbox will actually work for you? So when we talk about play attention in our process, we specialize in one thing. We help you reach your goals. So right now, if you would, go ahead and type in your goals in the chat box. Let me know why you're here today. You're here for a reason. You're either here because you're an adult and you're concerned about your productivity at work, or maybe you have a child who is really bright, but for some reason struggling in school. Or maybe you're a professional and you're wanting to have some more tools to help your clients develop and strengthen executive function. So go ahead and type in the chat box why you're here today. All right. Nancy says she is interested in play attention for herself. She's struggled since she's been a child, but was just recently diagnosed at the age of 51. Estelle says, I have an ADD child that has great plans, but never finishes. And Estelle, I think that a lot of people here today can relate to that, not only with their children, but themselves personally. Tina says, I am suffering from ADHD and hungry for learning. That is such an important point that you have these goals, right? And you want to develop these skills so that you can continue learning and growing. Ellie says, myself and my children. Uh, let's see. Shoshana says, help for focus and executive functioning for me and my 19-year-old son. So now, Shoshana and Ellie, you bring up something that's really important. And I hope everyone caught that in the beginning when I said I've been using play attention with every age from 5 all the way up through adulthood, right? Because it's really important to remember if you are looking at play attention, we can customize a plan for every family member. So it's very rare that we only work with one family member. Typically, it's at least one parent, at least one child, if not the entire family. And now, what I'm seeing more and more is that we're working with several generations. So, grandparents, parents, and children. So, I'm glad you brought up that point. Maggie, overall cognitive function rapidly going down and finding managing basic life difficult. So, Maggie, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Can you tell me how old you are? Because you said it's rapidly going down. Are you, in your 50s or 60s? Are we looking at aging? Or just in general, you may just be middle age and you find things are rapidly going downhill. Let me know. I'm interested because I have something to share in that area as well. Maureen says, I'm a school nurse with many students in varying degrees of ADHD. Janet says, my son has extreme executive function. I think you meant challenges there. Maureen says, and I want to help them develop meaningful skills. So that was the school nurse that wants to help her students. Excellent. Um, Sherry says, sad, I can't get help that I need. Eileen says, wanting to feel like a whole person again, regain abilities to pay attention, stop procrastination, and redevelop missing executive functions. Excellent. Eileen, and I think that's so important the way you stated that you want to regain these abilities, because what we want to keep in mind is what we know through neuroplasticity, that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide you with the right tools and the right challenge, you can create these new neural pathways despite your current wiring. We know age is not a factor. We also know that labels like ADHD are not a factor. If we provide you the right challenge, you can create and regain these skills. Maggie, thank you. You say you replied to my age question, and that's 50. And the reason I ask that is because it's been really interesting over the last 5 years. We've seen a real big shift in our client base where our majority of our clients right now are adults between the ages of 45 and 75. And so, with aging, especially as women age, we have a lot of changes, right? And that means that we're just going through normal aging. And then we also have the hormonal changes. And all of this does exacerbate many of the ADHD symptoms. So that's why I really asked you your age as a woman, especially because you said you're noticing that some of these cognitive abilities are rapidly changing for you. And I'm going to share with you a really exciting new division of play attention that's just being released, and that's Silver Minds, where we're incorporating play attention along with all of the elements that we know are critical to the aging brain, like socialization, exercise, mindful movement, mindfulness in general, and continuing education. So I'll touch on that a little bit as well, Maggie. Sharda says, I got diagnosed at 56 as ADHD and having issues with focus, concentration, and attention and keeping up with schedules. Um, Brian, my computer restarted. What was the question? The question was, why are you here, Brian? That was the question. What is your goal? So there's so many coming in. And oh, it's Britt. Sorry about that. Britt. I'm sorry, Britt. I don't know why I read that as Brian. I guess it was a little cut off there. Um, so thank you for putting in your answers there and allowing me to provide all of your comments to the group because that's really important. I think everyone needs to know that you're not alone in this. A lot of people are going through similar situations that you are. And so, what we want to keep in mind is what I talked about earlier with neuroplasticity. And that's what we specialize within play attention, where we assess your particular needs and we customize neurocognitive training. We are actually the pioneers in neurocognitive training. We developed the genre back in the early 1990s. It was the founder of our company, Peter Freer, who actually started researching different attention training techniques that were being done. And he came across the work that Dr. Pope and Dr. Paulson were doing with NASA. And what he found is that they were integrating feedback technology with their flight simulator, which means that they were monitoring the brain states of their pilots and astronauts. And as long as they were in their peak attentive state, then the flight simulator, was very easy to control. Everything was pretty much automatic. But if they got distracted or stressed or anxious, they weren't as attentive, then their job became very difficult and the controls became more manual and sluggish. So that our the founder of our company thought that's brilliant, right? If I can show my clients their attention in real time while working on all of these skills they need for day-to-day life, then I have a comprehensive program. And that is the very foundation of play attention. That's what makes us unique and effective. It's what we teach and how we teach it. So, play attention is the only program available that integrates feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive approach available. So, some of you may have already seen our body wave technology on our website, and you see a drawing here of that. And this is really important. It's a key piece of our program. This is our neurotechnology. On the back, there are three sensors. And when I slide this armband on my arm, those sensors are now monitoring my brain activity that tells us how attentive I am. And then that information is given over to the computer where I'm allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with my mind, or more specifically, my attention alone. And I receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not I truly am focused and paying attention. And that's a really important first step in the learning process. Because right now, if you think about, if you look at your child or your partner or your clients and you say, I need you to pay attention, what do they typically say back to you? If they're struggling with attention or ADHD and you say, I need you to pay attention, go ahead and type in the chat box. What do you typically hear when you say that? I want to see if you're hearing the same thing I was hearing. So Britt says, I'm listening. Janina, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She says, I am. It's not so easy, says Shoshana. That's very true. Easier said than done. That is very true. Um, Tina says, I am paying attention. What's wrong with you? LOL. So a lot of you are hearing that. Well, I am paying attention. And they really think that they are, that you may be just talking about yourself, right? You may really think that you're paying attention, but just haven't developed what it takes for you personally. So what neurotechnology allows us to do is take that very abstract concept of attention and make it concrete and controllable, where you actually see your attention, you feel what you're doing, and you're allowed to practice not only just attention, but all of these other cognitive skills that we know are important but and required for executive function. So we work on all areas of cognitive abilities. And the important thing to keep in mind is that this body wave armband is actually activating all of those exercises. All of the exercises are brain enabled, meaning you have to be paying attention. So no matter if you're working on attention stamina or task completion or working memory, you have to be paying attention. If you're not paying attention, then the activity will stop or the character will go in the wrong direction, and you have to focus back in order to continue. And the reason we do this is because we know there are three critical catalysts required for brain change. And we talk about improving executive function. That's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about sparking brain change. And brain change doesn't just occur. There have to be certain catalysts in place, and we incorporate all of those catalysts into our program. So the very first catalyst necessary for brain change is attention. You can have a great teacher, you could have a great counselor or life coach, but if you're having a hard time paying attention to that individual or the process, it's hard to get maximum benefit. So that's why we make certain that no matter what you're working on, you are actively engaged. Okay. The next catalyst that we incorporate is challenge. You know, all of us love to be 100% successful, right? Most of us do engage in activities that we've already mastered, right? They don't challenge us that much. And in order for brain change to occur, then you have to have challenge. So we incorporate challenge into our program. When you put that body wave armband on, we're only looking at your best ability to pay attention. And the bar is set there. If you're able to reach or exceed that level of attention, then you're able to activate the exercise. If you maintain that level of attention for a given number of seconds, then in the background, we raise the bar just a little bit. Now you have to be that much more attentive in order to be successful. Because if we let you be 100% successful, That's great, but we're not going to spark any brain change because you've already mastered it. So we have to challenge you. And then the opposite is true too, because some of you may be thinking, well, I don't want to be frustrated, or my child is already frustrated. I don't want her to be frustrated here. So we know that. So the opposite is true too. If you start getting a little fatigued and you can't reach that same level of attention, then we bring that bar back down and we gradually build you back up. So play attention is constantly keeping you at a challenging yet success-based pace. And then deliberate practice is also very important because that deliberate practice is where you're not just coming into your session and going through the motions, right? We're actually setting mini goals. So when you log in, and you're given a certain exercise, sheer genius, our artificial intelligence, is going to set a mini goal based on your previous performance. So let's say that Britt logs in and Play Attention says, today we're going to work on attention stamina. Last time you were 70% attentive. Today let's try 72%. So we have that deliberate practice. So again, we incorporate all of the catalysts required to spark brain change in one place. Now, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for a very long time, since 1994, actually, so over 30 years. But Tufts University School of Medicine wanted to know, is that integration we do? Because remember, we talked about Play Attention's the only program that integrates that feedback with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping. Is that important? Or can we just give you a series of cognitive exercises, or what you hear a lot about as brain games or brain training apps, and get the same results? So they had three different groups of individuals, all identified as ADHD. The first group received Play Attention, so they had that full integration. The second received just cognitive exercises, so brain games on the computer, no feedback technology, and no behavior shaping. And the third was their control, and they received no intervention at all. And at the end of the study, the Play Attention individuals were the only group that showed global improvements in all areas, including academic, social, behavioral, and executive function. And that's really important to keep in mind. Global improvements in all of those areas. That means they transferred and generalized. They applied those skills outside of the Play Attention exercises. Because a lot of times what you hear about as for with brain games or brain training apps is that you get better in the game, but not necessarily in life. And this study showed that they were able to apply and improve in all of those areas. They also found that if the client was on medication, because some of them were on, some of them were not. But if they were on medication and in the Play Attention group, those individuals had an average decrease in their medication, where the other two groups had an average increase. And that goes back to skill building. You know, medication works for many people by controlling symptoms. The challenge is that medication doesn't teach any skills or change behaviors. So we don't want to medicate and fail to educate. We want to use this time to help you develop skills. And that's what Play Attention can do. It can teach the skills that medication alone cannot teach. Okay, so really important to know the background, how we are inspired by NASA technology. We are validated by Tufts University School of Medicine research. All of that is really good information for you to keep in mind as we go into looking at how Play Attention actually works. Because I'm going to switch my screen so that I can actually show you what that feedback looks like. Okay. So now you see my client here on the screen. He has that body wave armband on, as do I. Now, before I show you how Play Attention works and show you Play Attention in action, I'm going to give you a pop quiz, okay? So I'm going to put a poll up on the screen. And if you see the poll on your screen, you can just type, just plug in your answer, or you can type it in if you don't see it on your screen. If you're on your phone, you might not be able to see it. So what does the body wave armband monitor? Is it A, eye movement? Is it B, breathing? Is it C, brain activity? Or is it D, FM radio? What is that body wave armband monitoring? Is it eye movement, breathing, brain activity, or FM radio? All right, I'm going to close. Great. The poll in 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Okay, so 88% of you answered correctly. It is brain activity, okay? It's not breathing, it's not eye movement, because remember, if we're going to show you your attention in real time, attention originates in the brain. Breathing, deep breathing, definitely can help you get into that attentive state, but attention originates in the brain. So that is what we're monitoring. We're monitoring that brain activity that is indicative of attention. All right, so I'm going to Britt says this is testing our short-term memory. Is it? You mean the poll I just gave you the test? It is indeed, Britt. You did great. All right, I'm going to share the play attention system now. And so I'm going to just switch my screen here. Okay, so right now you should be able to see the play attention screen. And just know that while I am sharing this interface, I can't see your questions. So please do keep your questions coming because they are important and I will get back to them. But just know that I can't answer you in real time because I can't see them right now. But this is the interface here. This is our dashboard. Now, as you look at these different exercises, keep in mind, you will not need all of these. That's where the customization comes in. So everyone here, whether you're a home client or a professional client, you are assigned a personal focus coach. And yes, that is a real live human being. I keep getting that question lately. It is a real human that is going to support you every step of the way. And the very first thing we do is assess your particular needs so that, again, we can pinpoint which cognitive skills are most important for your program. And once we set up your profile, then you can go through your onboarding and then start your sessions. But keep in mind, all of these exercises that you see are brain enabled. You have to be paying attention in order to activate the exercise. So I'm going to share with you attention stamina. So this is teaching me how to direct and sustain my attention to low stimuli at will, much like being able to pay attention to the teacher in the classroom or my colleagues in the workplace. So I can choose from different characters, but one is this dolphin. When I click play, the very first thing you're going to see is a transition screen. So in a moment, you're going to see your game is loading, and that is just helping me transition from our conversation into the actual exercise itself. And then once we get past this, you're going to, and I'm going to turn my volume down just a little bit so you can still hear me. So you should see my character at the top of the screen, and my attention meter is white because I'm not paying attention. I'm distracted. I'm talking to you. So now I'm going to stop our conversation. I'm going to pay attention to my task. Once I'm paying attention, I'm going to be able to swim him all the way down to the bottom of the ocean just with my attention alone. Okay, so I'm going to stop, focus in. Now that's as low as he goes right there. Notice what happens as soon as I get distracted. Immediately he starts to float up because I'm no longer as attentive. And distraction can be a variety of things. It could be daydreaming, it could be anxiety, it could be someone walking into the room and I can't filter that noise. Immediately I get that feedback. Now I know I have to control that behavior, control that daydreaming, focus in. So you see, it's kind of like a piece of exercise equipment for the brain. We're working areas that right now may be challenging. And when we can provide you with that constant and immediate feedback regarding your attention, you're then able to develop the self-regulation and self-monitoring you need in order to recognize when you're paying attention, recognize when you're not paying attention, And more importantly, when you're not, you'll know how to correct it because you've given yourself an opportunity to actually practice it. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. No longer just saying, I need you to pay attention, sit still, eyes on me, right? I'm not trying to lecture to you and tell you what to do. I'm providing you with an experience. And that's how we learn through experience. So, a couple of things I want to point out. One is that you noticed our graphics. That's about as exciting as they get. All of our graphics are very simple. They are very low stimuli. And the reason we do this is because we know if we give you something high stimuli or of high interest, you can pay attention in those situations, right? Your child can hyper focus when it comes to playing a regular video game or TikTok or Legos or something they're really interested in. They can hyper focus on high stimuli and high interest. We don't need to teach that. What we need to teach is what's more challenging, and that's how to pay attention to low stimuli, much like the classroom teacher or the workplace cannot possibly compete with that high stimuli. So that's why everything's presented very simply, so that you can learn how to pay attention to that low stimuli at will. Now, all of your data is stored for you. So you see here, I worked for a minute and 27 seconds. Of that time, I was actually paying attention 30% of the time. And my recovery speed, which is from the time I lost my attention to the time I regained it, was right around 15 seconds. So I have a lot to improve. But sheer genius, that AI, remember, is going to use this information to document progress, to set those mini goals, that deliberate practice model. So the next time I log in, Sheer Genius is going to say, yesterday you completed this with 30% attention. Today, let's try 32%. And if you do that, you're in a point. The point goes into my reward system. So the AI is documenting progress, setting those mini goals, tracking rewards, and then also looking at skill advancement. So there is a bronze, silver, and gold medal. There are certain benchmarks I have to reach before moving up to intermediate and then to advanced. And the AI, again, is going to track those benchmarks and graduate you when appropriate. And when we move you up, we're going to tie in more processes required for executive function, such as processing speed, impulse control, distractors, and mental flexibility. So it gets a little bit more complex. There are times you're going to have to respond to certain stimuli using the mouse or the keyboard, but you're still driving everything with your attention. Okay. All right. I am going to go back to our slides here, but please do keep your questions coming as I switch over here. Okay. So hopefully in just a moment, you'll see our main screen again here. Okay. So I hope that really gave you an understanding and of feedback and how empowering that is. You know, a lot of times when we're working with clients, especially with clients who are teenagers or young adults or even older individuals, and they feel at this point that a lot of this is outside of their control. And that's what's really powerful about the play attention experience is that we're empowering you and we're showing you that you can control all of this, right? And that's how we learn. Britt, yes, it is available internationally. So Canada, absolutely. But we have distributors around the world, absolutely. And you will have your focus coach assigned to you as well. Okay. So now remember that all of the cognitive exercises we address, the reason we develop these foundational skills is for our end goal, which is to improve executive function. Now, I know that many of you here today are familiar with that term, executive function. But for those of you who may not be as familiar, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. So you can think of executive function as kind of like the CEO of your brain. It's what controls your ability to, it gives you the ability to control your attention, your behaviors, your emotions. It allows you to plan and prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. So it is a set of mental processes that you see here on my screen housed in the frontal lobes. Now, what we really want to keep in mind is that no one is born with strong executive function. but we all have the potential to develop it. And that development starts right after birth and continues through our mid to late 20s. Unfortunately, and many of you here can probably relate to this, we expect everyone to have strong executive function by the time they hit middle school. So when they're the ripe old age of about 11 or 12, we expect everyone to be independent and organized and mentally flexible, and that development doesn't always naturally happen. There are a lot of factors that can inhibit that development or later in life can negatively impact executive function. Those factors are varied, right? It could be ADHD, it can be autism, it can be post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, anxiety, depression. All of those factors can negatively impact your executive function. And more often than not, it's a combination of those factors. It is very rare that ADHD exists on their own. And when ADHD does not exist on its own, there's that comorbidity. It's really difficult to know where one ends and the other begins because they are so interrelated. So, what we want to keep in mind again is that neuroplasticity allows us to develop those new neural pathways. And that's what we're doing within Play Attention to create those new neural pathways required for strong executive function. So there are several different exercises that we are going to have available to you within Play Attention. The first six come standard in our core, and these are considered to be the foundations of executive function. And just as I go through these, keep in mind what we're working on in each area, because what we'll do initially, remember, is pinpoint. Usually, I like to prioritize our top seven, what's most important for your program, knowing that we can turn the others on at any time. So, attention stamina is your ability to direct and sustain your attention to low stimuli. Visual tracking, that's a great one. If, let's say, the teacher says to you, he does great when I stand right next to him, but as soon as I walk away, he's out the window and out the door and then has that diffused attention where he's picking up a little bit of everything. Task completion, this is one of our most popular. For children, it's, that 15 minutes of homework that takes 2 or 3 hours. Or for you as an adult, you might think, I am busy all day long, but at the end of the day, I haven't finished anything. So it's that ability to start and complete in a timely manner. Short-term memory, the ability to remember dates, names, facts. Filtering distractions, because again, we know attention deficit is a misnomer. You don't have a deficit of attention. The challenge is you have great attention. It's just scattered over a variety of things. So we teach you how to stay focused and filter out unnecessary stimuli. And then we have the academic bridge or attention monitor that works on that transfer and generalization. You can think of this as an enhancement to your program. So you see my client has the body wave armband on, and now he's not engaged in one of the play attention exercises. He's actually working on his university work. So as long as he's paying attention to his course, and the lecture that's on screen, he's going to hear from the computer, good, great. If he starts to drift, he'll hear focus, and then he knows he's not in that state he needs to be in. So this is where we ask you to take everything you've learned and apply it to your office work, your homework, so that you develop that self-regulation while doing actual work, homework, or office work. Okay? Now, there are a variety of different cognitive exercises. So, we also address working memory. That's the ability to hold information on your mental sticky note in order to complete a task. For example, if you think to yourself, I have to pick up these 5 items at the store. I don't need to write them down because surely I'll remember 5 items. And then you get to the store and you remember 2 of those items and pick up 3 random things. So that's working memory, that ability to hold information to complete a task. If you have a child or a client that's in school, that often may negatively impact reading comprehension or mathematical equations. Auditory processing is the ability to follow through with multiple step verbal instructions. Hand-eye coordination, that is more about fine motor control. Social skills, we work on picking up on social cues. Spatial memory is remembering where things are located. Mental math is first grade and second grade addition and subtraction. We also have motor skills for gross motor control and mindfulness. That's another one of our really popular ones. And I recommend that for anyone who has anxiety or lots of internal chatter or is experiencing rejection sensitive dysphoria. I really recommend that mindfulness program because we know and we hear so much about how mindfulness helps with the symptoms of ADHD, which is true. However, we can't look at someone with ADHD and say, now I want you to practice mindfulness because mindfulness is hard. It's hard for all of us, but especially if you have that running mind. So, what we do is we give you a visual representation of what it means to be in the present moment. So, when you're working on the mindfulness application, you'll have your body wave armband on. You'll see that lotus flower in the middle of the screen. Once you are mindful and you're in the present moment, that petal will start to open on the flower. Now, if you start thinking, when's my next appointment? Who do I have to call? What do I have to pick up at the store? That petal's going to start to close because you're no longer present and you have to bring yourself back. So we're not just saying, uh, Sherry, can you just stay mindful and distractions are going to happen. Just accept that and let them go because that's easier said than done. We're going to give you a visual representation and guide you through that practice. Really powerful. As you can tell, it's one of my favorites. So, as we went through that list, like I said, typically like to narrow it down when we're starting with a new client to our top 7. So you already may know in your mind what you would like for your program or what would be best for your child or your clients. But if you have some questions and you want help narrowing that down and looking at what a customized program would look like, we do have a couple of options. One is our Play Attention online assessment. Some of you may have already taken that at our website. It says ADHD test. You just go through a series of questions, and at the end, you get an email that gives you what we would recommend for a customized plan. So if you haven't done that yet and you'd like to go through that process, just type in test. And again, that's just a series of questions so that we can really line up the areas of your concern with a customized program. So you can review what that would look like. And you can fill out multiple tests. It can be for yourself, for your partner, or your child, or the entire family. So just type in test if you'd like to receive that link. And then also, if you would like a more in-depth look at your attentional control or your executive function, we have 2 others available. We have the focus assessment, which is a norm reference test of attentional control. And we also have the brief assessment, which is a behavior rating inventory of executive function. Okay. Those are much more in depth. They're $50 a piece. And after you complete those, we do need about 40 minutes to do a feedback session with you and review the results to further customize your plan. So keep that in mind or type in focus if you want more information about the more in-depth assessments. Either test if you want just the questionnaire or focus if you want more in-depth information. Now, some of you may have a neuropsych evaluation, right? And you have 20 pages and of information. And the challenge sometimes is you have 20 pages of information, but now what? What do I do? We can take that information and customize your plan around that. So that's always really helpful information as well. Okay. Now, remember too, uh, don't just raise your hand. If you want something, you do have to type it in the chat box because I can't keep track. I won't have any track of when you raised your hand. Okay, that's just important. Let's see. So, Britt, you do not need a diagnosis. This is for anyone who wants to improve cognitive skills. This is cognitive training, cognitive development, behavior shaping. You do not need a diagnosis because keep in mind, we work with a lot of different individuals. It may be ADHD, they may have autism, they may have a combination. They may have post-traumatic stress. They may have a traumatic brain injury. So you don't need a diagnosis. It's for anyone who wants to improve those cognitive skills and executive function, no matter what the cause. Okay. This does give us a lot of good information to supplement and to further customize your plan. Okay. All right. Now keep your questions coming because I'm going to go a little bit over. So I am going to circle back to these questions at the end. So let's go ahead and summarize what play attention looks like on the day to day. When you start, you're going to be assigned your support team, which is your technical advisor and your personal dedicated focus coach. You're going to meet with your dedicated focus coach to set up your profile and then to take you through an onboarding session. And during the onboarding, we're taking you through a practice session just to make sure you're real comfortable with everything before you get started. And this is whether you're doing this at home or in a school or a clinical setting. Now, once you go through your onboarding, we do recommend that everyone works at least an hour per week. Most of our professionals will work with their clients 2 days a week for about 30-minute blocks of time. If you are doing this at home, most of our home clients do 4 15-minute sessions. You could do 6 10-minute sessions, whatever you decide is best for your schedule and best for your learning process. But we do recommend at least an hour per week. Like I mentioned before, you can train with the entire family because it is very rare that we only work with one family member. Now, if you are doing a 15-minute session, let me go back to that initial slide here. If you're doing, let's say, a 15-minute session, that means when you log in, Sheer Genius is going to select 3 different exercises for that day based on previous performance. So you log in, Sheer Genius will say, okay, today, Nidra, we're going to work on attention stamina, time on task, and working memory. Not only that, but Sheer Genius is going to give you a mini goal for each exercise. So you log in, you do your 3 exercises, you log out, there's a journal, time for reflection, what I did well, what I'm proud of, and then you're done for the day. The next day, you log in, 3 new exercises, 3 new mini goals, log out, journal, done. That's kind of the process you're going to get into. And you're going to start to see good results after about 6 weeks of consistent training. You're going to notice that you are more focused, that you're more productive at the end of the day. You'll notice that you just gave your child 3 instructions and she was able to follow through without being redirected or reminded. You're less stressed. So you're going to start noticing these small steps of improvement. But the research shows in order to gain permanency, in order for us to know that not only will you have these skills now, but you'll have them 20 years from now, that usually takes about 40 hours total. So if you're working that hour per week, I would plan on about 10 months of consistent training. Now, around that 10-month period, you're going to be meeting with your focus coach all the way through. But around that 40-hour mark, that's where we're looking at, are you at all the advanced skill options? Has everything transferred and generalized? If everything looks good, we'll start graduating from the program. If it looks like there's more work to be done, we simply customize the plan and we keep going. What's important for you to remember is you own the program and your support is unlimited. So whether it takes you 10 months or 16 months, it really doesn't matter. We continue working as long as necessary. And once you graduate, you can always continue using it for peak performance. And all of your data will be tracked and graphed for you. So you have all of your information at your fingertips. You will always be able to go into your dashboard and see progress over time. And if you want a deeper dive into the data, that's when you connect with your focus coach so that they can review all of the data with you. So remember, let's think back to the initial slide where we talked about what your goals were, why you're here today. So think about why you're here. You wanted to improve productivity. You wanted to help your child improve executive function. You don't want to be so exhausted at the end of the day. You want to be more organized or improve your ability to prioritize and plan and organize your time. So you want to perhaps control your impulsive behaviors. You want to improve your relationships. You all had very specific goals in mind. And that's what we're going to get to know. We're going to get to know your specific needs, your goals, so we can customize your plan. And as long as you're able to set up that consistent training and keep in touch with your focus coach, knowing that this is a learning process, right? We're going to work at least an hour per week, start seeing good results at about 6 weeks of consistent training. But in order to gain permanency, we're looking at approximately 40 hours for skills that last a lifetime. So as I mentioned, there are 2 different programs available. And also, I am going to come back to your questions, so keep those coming. Questions and requests, keep those coming. There are 2 systems. One is the home program, and the other is the professional program. Both of these programs include everything you need to run your program. So we ship that body wave armband to you. Remember, you need the neurotechnology. That is the critical component. Then you'll have your 6 core cognitive exercises that we reviewed. You have the option to add on any of those additional modules at any time. And the only difference between the home system and the professional system is that the home system comes standard with a user license for 2 people. That means at any one time, you could have 2 family members enrolled in the program. If you want to upgrade that user license, an additional user license is $50 a piece. So you can start with 2 and you can gradually increase that as needed. The professional system, for you, those professionals here today who are thinking, I have 25 clients I could enroll tomorrow. You have that ability. You have an unlimited user license and you never have to repurchase any type of licensing fee. So that's the 2 programs available. Again, I look forward to chatting with you in the future. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.